Refael is an award-winning writer, former weekly editorial columnist for the Jewish Journal of Greater Los Angeles, as well as a contributor to Newsweek, Los Angeles Magazine, the Los Angeles Times, and other publications. Named a prominent chronicler of Persian LA by the Los Angeles Times, Tabby was born in post-revolutionary Iran and came to the US as a refugee and child survivor of the Iran-Iraq War in the late 1980s. She holds a master's in public diplomacy from the University of Southern California. And Talya Jankovits is an award-winning Chicago-based writer with multiple magazine publications. She holds an MFA in creative writing from Antioch University, and her collection of poems, Girl, Woman, Wife, Mother, received first place in contemporary poetry in the 2024 BookFest Awards. The Very Unremarkable Life of Mrs. Etty Bloom is her debut novel, and we're so excited to have her here in LA at Book Soup to discuss it tonight, so please join me in giving a warm welcome to Tabby and to Talya.
Yay!
Thank you so much to Book Soup for having us.
Okay, everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, Talya.
Hi, Tabby. I'm happy to be here with you.
Welcome home.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, LA, for turning out. My hometown, born and raised here, and I'm really excited to be here with my debut book. So,
I'm so excited. You did it. You're here. And I also really want to take a moment to thank the woman and lovely friend who connected us, our friend Jamie Schulman, who's here, who called me maybe 4 months ago and said, Tabby, I have an amazingly talented close friend. Her name is Talya. She's written her first book. I want to connect you. And as soon as we talked, I knew there was something magical about you, Talya. And then once I read Etty, and I have to tell you, I read Etty over Passover, over Pesach. And it was both great because I was so relaxed from all the wine that I consumed over the course of 2 nights at least, that I was really able to sort of have enough distance. And for those of you who know about the unremarkable life of Mrs. Etty Bloom, there's a lot that happens. I was able to hold enough distance from it, but it could have been the severe emotional dysregulation that I also had from not having the bread and the carbs for 8 days, because I also found myself connecting so emotionally, sometimes in disbelief, sometimes in rage, and we'll get back to that at another time. I want to start out by just asking you to give us a little bit of context. I don't want to know yet how Etty herself really came, into being, because that's a separate question, but the story of all of this itself, and what made you feel compelled to write a story about a woman in the Hasidic community in the 1950s, 1960s, and beyond in New York. Take us back a little bit into the process of the book itself.
yeah, so Etty came to me as a fully developed person. She was nearly an apparition. She came fully formed in her middle age, and quite insufferable and Hasidic, which I think for many people might feel like an anomaly. Why would this character be Hasidic? But for me, it did not feel like an anomaly at all. It felt like a natural development of this character. My family on my paternal side is Hasidic, and we grew up with Hasidic customs. So this felt like a very familiar character to me. And at the time I was working on a different manuscript, and I wasn't quite ready to follow Etty around and figure out what her story was. And she sort of just sat with me for a while, about 1 or 2 years. She just sat with me on my shoulder. And during that time and during that space, she just kind of expanded. She became more full, and she was also sort of sponging up a lot of unlikable traits that I was coming across. And eventually I felt compelled to figure out, who is this woman? Why was she unlikable? Why was she insufferable? What experiences transpired along the way that made her this way? And that ultimately led to a story in which a lot of empathy was created for opportunity through this read to connect with somebody that might feel externally different, that might feel unrelatable at times, and find the humanity that lied within this character. Yeah.
Something that I really love about you, and it's so refreshing, especially for a writer like myself and an aspiring author, is how open you are, and you have been, about the utter rejection process that all aspiring authors experience. And you've written about this, there have been numerous interviews about this. You're always open about it. In fact, I read one interview with you where the interviewer didn't ask you about this, and you brought it up yourself. You know, toward the end, where she said, "Is there anything else you'd like to share?" And you brought this up yourself. So I wanted you, if you can, to, for yes, the writers in the room, but for all of us, because life is nothing if not a series of expectations that are either met or fall flat on their face, for all of us.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that your kids here are always here to hear these answers too. You were rejected over 260 times with Etty.
Yeah.
You also write very openly. You had a writer's workshop, and I won't tell the whole story, but you wrote, about a fishing trip, and the feedback that the teacher gave was actually vital for you. Walk us through how rejection affected both your resilience and will, but also maybe helped you push through with that voice that you have.
Yeah, so I do talk a lot about this journey because I think that when I was writing through the rejection, I needed to hear these stories. I needed to hear the stories of perseverance and endurance. I think often we're exposed to success. We're exposed to the end result, and we don't often hear about the journey along the way. And I think that that's where the real success lies, in the perseverance and the endurance, in this willpower to keep going. I think those are the successful people, regardless of whether they meet their goal in the end or not. So I'm actually very transparent and very honest about the process of getting this book to where it was. And yes, from my first manuscript combined with this one, I had a total of over 500 rejections. It sounds like a lot at once. It actually is a lot.
You should see some people's faces.
But it did happen over the span of about 14, 15 years. It didn't all fall into my lap all at once. But it's really difficult and challenging to pick yourself up every single time someone's saying no, and a door is being closed, and a door is being closed. I think that my ability to endure was a combination of a few factors. The first thing is I am naturally tenacious. I don't take no easily. My parents are in the audience. My husband's not here, but if he was, he would agree.
Let's have your parents. Where are the parents?
Okay, yeah, they're shy.
She's
Tenacious. So I don't take no very readily. So it was, I think, naturally in my personality to keep going. But that's not to dismiss the fact that it is hard to keep hearing no over and over and over again. And there were many times where I felt like I wanted to give up and I didn't want to put up with this anymore, and it was really difficult. But there is one thing that comes very naturally to me, and that's writing. And if I kept writing through it, that helps me endure and go through this rejection, to write through it. That was how I was able to handle the rejection. So as long as I was always working on something and writing something and creating, then it wasn't about that goal of publication. It was just about the process of being creative. And I had a great support system. I had family that believed in me and encouraged me. I had a great support system. I have somebody right here, Tony Ann. She is an exceptional award-winning writer. She blurbed my book. And there were moments in which we were dialoguing and she was encouraging me through the process. So I think it takes a community and it takes a village to hold each other up. And I think, like you said, this isn't just applicable to those of us who are writers. This is applicable to anyone who's got a goal in mind, who's chasing something and working towards something, to not give up. Yeah.
So true. What you said reminded me of years ago. I read a book in graduate school, and the author said, make sure all young people, but everyone especially knows this, never imagine yourself you know, that quintessential fantasy you have as a kid of rock star. Never imagine yourself on stage as the rock star with everyone shouting for you or you getting your awards. Imagine all the doors slammed in your face and the auditions when you're being rejected, because it is actually will make you into such a more resilient, well-rounded, and yes, grateful person.
Yeah.
And I've actually done that with myself. Sometimes I just daydream about doors closing in my face.
Easier to envision than them opening.
Now, you conducted a lot of research, and in the short time that I know you, I can tell you're responsible and meticulous, so I'm not surprised. You conducted research into the Hasidic community. You conducted, you know, research even into Yiddish. You interviewed, you know, relatives. You don't know, as an Iranian American Jew, how much I learned from this.
I learned too.
Yeah, I was looking at the glossary, you know, afterwards. Did you have any concerns about, it's a kind of a multifaceted question. Number one, as you're writing, or beforehand or afterwards, you're reviewing, you know, did you have concerns about whether you were portraying both the Hasidic community, you were representing them accurately, the Jewish community overall, for non-Jewish readers who might read this and go, how much can one person eat from a bakery? Oh, by the way, if you must read the book during Pesach, be very careful, because the bakery and Rugelach and Challah references almost killed me. So talk to me a little bit about how you address those representations, but also, do you know if the book has made the rounds among the Hasidic community? And you know, what has that feedback been like? I'll tell you that one of my dear friends who wasn't able to come tonight, she read the book, and her family members are you know, survivors, and she said, Tabby, she wrote it exactly like it is, but she brought back a lot for me of the trauma that, you know, I saw my parents and grandparents have. I know it's a lot to address in one question,
Okay, yeah.
so we'll talk about,
We'll see what we come up
you
with.
know.
Yeah, so when I first set out to write it, I didn't really think about anyone I was writing it for. I just tried to write the story, and that was part of the creative process, is just sitting down to hear this character show up for her and see what she had to present to me. And then the concerns might arise more during the revision process. As you're revising and you know, you're looking it over, those are times where the small voices are coming in. How well am I portraying? Am I doing a good enough job? And there's quite a bit of satire in this book. And I wanted to make sure I was carefully balancing moments in which I wanted to evaluate critically some of the more problematic, maybe, components of an observant lifestyle, while also simultaneously presenting the beauty that is also contained in this lifestyle. And the dichotomy, that's a reality. You can have both. And there is this quiet fear always that you might offend or upset somebody. But you have to quiet those voices, I think. For anything, I could offend anyone at any moment. But I think if you have integrity and honesty when you're showing up to write the story, then hopefully that fulfills that right then and there. I don't know of anyone in the Hasidic community who has read the book, but there is a little moment in the book where Etty herself and her family sneak in secular books. So I don't know if there's any Hasidim that might be sneaking in my secular book, taking a quick peek. I don't know, it wouldn't maybe come and circle around. But my hope would be that if somebody did read it, that they would feel that I handled this with sensitivity and care and honesty. Did I answer all the parts of the question?
Yes, but you know what I realized when you were speaking is that I never actually gave you an opportunity to read an excerpt, did I?
Okay, we can take a little pause now and get into that.
I was so excited to jump right in and to welcome you back home that I was supposed to give you some time to read. Should we?
Yeah,
should
well,
you-
I like that. We'll do an in.
Yeah.
We'll jump right in here. Okay, I have to find my
Let me know
place.
if you want me to hold or.
So I'm reading from what's my favorite chapter. I didn't think my father was going to be here today, but he is. So
Listen, can you read?
that happens to be.
Can you
I
read?
know, I'm not reading from the mother chapter. It happens to be that my favorite chapter is the chapter called Tati, So I'm going to just read briefly from that chapter to give you a taste. This is a little bit earlier on in the book when Etty is still a child. The book takes place with Etty's birth, and it follows her entire lifetime all the way to her death. And it follows her prosaic being, her existence, and explores inside of that prosaic existence the moments that Etty ultimately learns at the very end were all remarkable. So we're placed in the beginning of the book in that third chapter called Tata. Etty's father wore a crown atop his head, and this made her very jealous. On Shabbos, Yom Tov, and on momentous occasions such as a simcha, he stood tall with his special headpiece, a flat velvet center with a thick, wide brim of black fox fur called a shtreimel. This crown was very special, very expensive, and Etty was not allowed to touch it under any circumstances. During the weekdays, the crown sat safe and secure in a designated box that was kept on the top shelf of the coat closet right beside the front door. Most girls of Etty's age fantasized about tiaras, ones that shone bright and sparkled, but not Etty. Etty admired her father, revered him. He filled her little being with such intense admiration that she wanted to be just like him, starting with his crown. During one bout of temptation, sometime before the big snowball incident, Etty found herself atop a rickety chair dragged from the dining room table, balancing on her tippy toes as she reached with both hands to retrieve the box from the top shelf of the coat closet. It was lighter than she anticipated, and she had to right the chair as it wobbled beneath her. She jumped down, her prize in hand. A smile of satisfied triumph spread across her chubby, freckled face. Etty placed the box on the floor. She folded herself atop her knees, braced and readied to open it. She anticipated the depth of her family's greatness escaping between the mouth of the lid and the base, enveloping her in the glorified light of royalty such a crown warranted. No such light appeared, but the fur was soft and the velvet thick. Etty's fingers tingled with a compulsive need to place the crown on her own head. Her head swam inside the soft gut of it, the fur hanging low over her face, blocking her eyes. Her small chin, the only bit of her not concealed by her father's regal headpiece. It was like this that he found her, her father. Her father whose four corners of his face never felt the sleek, sharp edges of a blade. Her father who prayed each morning in the warm glow of the sunshine, the rays bouncing off his silver atara, an eruption of lustrous, flaming divinity. Rabbi Greenberger, Etty's king, the man she both feared and loved. There he was. His shadow loomed over her Mary Jane's. His presence filled the cramped entrance of their home. She sensed him looking at her. Cautiously, she lifted the fur hat. Her peering eyes caught the fine line on his face, placed in limbo between humor and reproach. "My Etto, what are you doing?" he asked. Etty stayed quiet. She could hear the magnified fear of her drumming heart echo inside that giant crown. A warm wave of embarrassment washed over her. "Etty, your tata asked you a question." "I wanted to know what your crown feels like," she said, her face still concealed behind the thick brim of fur. "My crown?" Beryl's voice softened. "Are you mad?" "Mad? I am not mad. But if you wanted to touch my shtreimel, you should have asked. To touch someone else's things without permission is as good as stealing." Etty looked down at her feet. "I didn't think he'd let." "Then you should certainly not have touched it." Beryl approached his daughter. He lifted the shtreimel off her head and placed it back in the box, and the box back on the shelf. Etty watched, her face burning. "I wish I had a special crown." "But you do. Don't you know that? A lovely red one." Beryl put his hand on top of Etty's red and wild hair. "When I grow up, I want to marry a Talmid Chacham just like you, Tata." "Oh, Etty, I'm not a Talmid Chacham, but I know you will marry one. You're fit to marry an heir of a Hasidic dynasty. You are my very special princess, my Malka." Etty smiled. She knew it was true. that she was his very special princess, his only child. He was exquisitely hers alone and she his. This thrilled and haunted her.
You know, I really don't know how many authors take you through a main character from birth, delivery room, to death. And I realized you gave her the authenticity that she always had throughout her, but you didn't make the mistake some authors make of giving her older woman qualities as a child. When she was a child, you really kept her that way. And when she was, you know, a young woman and so on. Let's talk about Etty specifically for 1 minute as a character. It's a two-part question. We get the first one. You are nothing like Etty. Now, tell us quickly, was there a point when you began processing life as her, when a cashier, you know, gave you a disgruntled response and you didn't respond as Talya, you wanted to respond as Etty? Where did Talya end and Etty begin?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I like that. Because I think for many writers, we get very wrapped up with our characters and they're with us all the time. I think it was less that I inhabited Etty and more that Etty was always around me. My family's been familiar with this character for a very long time, and we would have these running jokes like this was an Etty moment or that was an Etty experience. So I think that she sort of became almost an environmental character. She was everywhere and all around us. I often say everybody knows an Etty. Everyone has an Etty in their life or in their community or whatever it is. And I think it's really important because there are some very difficult traits in Etty. And I think that one of the greatest lessons I had following this character, you did say we're not a lot alike. In some ways I think we are, but in other ways we are not, definitely not. And there were moments in which I had to write the character authentically on the page, and that made me have to write some uncomfortable scenes or explore uncomfortable internal thoughts that didn't necessarily align with mine. And in doing so, when I first set out to write this character, I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot stand this woman. But then as I wrote her, I fell in love with her because I learned her story and I learned about these small moments in her life that shaped her, and it created this empathy, and that empathy was something that became a life lesson for me because as I moved through my own life and I would interact with people that felt difficult or challenging to me, I would think to myself, well, maybe something happened that affected them and made them this way and act this way right now. And it allowed me to respond to these moments with greater kindness. So Etty taught me some great lessons.
She taught me great lessons, and so did you, and I'll tell you why. You reminded me that a main character doesn't have to be lovable. Really quite the opposite, and that's an act of courage, I think, as a writer, you know, and especially as a good writer. I was so ambivalent about Etty because there were really moments when I was rooting for her, and then there were moments when I just thought,
Yeah,
when
it's the side. You'll know it when you read it. You'll see.
but I'll tell you that she made me confront my own fears about aging, about how others perceive me, about loneliness in old age, about kids not answering the phone when I call. I mean, about everything. So you already actually answered one of my questions about this. I want to give everyone an example of one of my favorite humorous lines from the book. Shandel is gently advising Etty to keep her hands to herself on the first day of school.
Shandel is Etty's mother.
Yes, sorry. And she speaks to her daughter, quote, in a whisper that sounded like shouting. I just burst out laughing because there are so many people in my life that I know like this.
I think my kids might say that I do that sometimes.
My kids wouldn't because I don't whisper, I shout. That's it. And I want to give everyone an example of something. I really highlighted this in my own copy over here of the poignancy of it, and then I'll ask you a question about it. So there's one single wedding photo of Etty's mother and father, Shandel and Beryl. and I'm gonna read you something. Quote, Shandel had barely smiled since the Nazis destroyed her life, even in the single wedding photo of her and Beryl. Neither of them betrayed their grief. This really stopped me in my tracks. Life after the war was just living. There was no joy in it. There couldn't be when both their arms were weighed down with the ink of their trauma. Is it one of your hopes, whether directly as or sort of in passing, that a lot of the American Jewish community, specifically that would read your book, the Ashkenazi community, would be motivated after reading Etty to either ask questions or try to reconnect with a family history, if they lost ones in the Holocaust, that completely seems to be slipping away day by day?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I'm a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, and it was something that I grew up with very much in the ways that Etty grew up with. It's undeniable. You couldn't ignore it. It came out in any moment in our life. You know, it was my father's parents who were survivors, so if we were sitting at the Pesach table at Passover, he would acknowledge what they went through. There wasn't, Thanksgiving, even an American holiday, we would give thanks and acknowledge our freedoms and, you know, that my grandparents were able to come here. And it was such a natural component of my upbringing. But my own children, they don't know these grandparents. Their connection is not as strong as mine. It's just the natural progression of time. And this was such an opportunity for me to explore what that felt like to grow up as a grandchild of survivors, especially in a time in which we're seeing a lot of rhetoric that's alarming and concerning. And I didn't set out to write a Holocaust story. In fact, my first manuscript, the one that collected a few hundred rejections, that is a Holocaust fictional telling of actually my husband's family side. But when Etty came to me in her middle age, in present day, it was natural that I knew when I would backtrack to when she was born that her parents were survivors. Like, it was so natural to me that that was going to be where she ended up and where she came from. And to weave in these realities through the book felt authentic to me. It just felt natural. And I hope that the way that it's handled in the book, that it's not a book about Holocaust survivors or Holocaust stories, and it's sort of weaved in the same way that it was weaved in my own life. I do hope that it promotes some acknowledgments to, you know, retain our history, acknowledge our past, and try to prevent futures from taking place that echo that.
Who here has read Etty? Okay, so I'm not gonna give a lot away, but I have to tell you that I won't say what happens. I will just say, and those who read it will know. Talya, the snowball scene in Etty's childhood stayed with me and still is with me. And those of you who read it know what I'm talking about. Walk us through the process of having to sit down and write that. Were you able to be distant from it, or did you really need to let it deplete and sadden you the way it saddened us to make it authentic?
Yeah, the scene, without giving too much away, is a moment in Etty's childhood where she makes a terrible decision that is to the harm of someone else. And I rewrote that scene several times. I actually came at it a little bit more gently. I was nervous about the scene and the sensitivity in which I needed to handle that scene and the characters involved in that scene. So it was rewritten many times. And I think I had to encourage myself to feel safe enough within the story to tell it like it happened. And that's kind of when we walk into that moment where ourselves as the writer and our characters, we don't see eye to eye and we're not the same people. And it's important for readers to recognize that, to never, you know, make that assumption that the writer is the person in the story. And that allowed me, once I let go and said, this is Etty's story, this is Etty's moment, this is what Etty did, it's not a reflection of who I am or what my choices were, that allowed me to get into the scene a little bit more brutally.
Yeah.
And her choice haunts her for the rest of her life. So it was a difficult scene to write. Yeah.
Given the fantastic title, do you believe that each one of us inherently believes we mostly live a very unremarkable life, but that if we actually took some time to describe it to our lives to anyone else, they would see our successes, our failures, our demons as anything but unremarkable?
So, you know, the character and the title came to me together. It was kind of funny how it worked out that way. I knew that this book was going to be called The Unremarkable Life of Mrs. Etty Bloom the moment she came to me, which was such a fun package deal for me because it kind of informed where it was going with the story. And I think that, you know, I've been asked like, oh, is there any like, you know, reflection of your own journey? Did you think that you weren't remarkable or something like that? I don't think that I really thought about that in that way, but I do think that my intention was that we all might, in our fantasies of what we hope to aspire, I think a lot of us want recognition or greatness in some way, whatever it may be. And I also think that many of us might feel like we're insignificant because we are not living some giant life. And
Especially in the age of social
I was just
media.
gonna say, yes. So some of us are growing up in it, some of us are just surrounded by it, and I think that also connects back to the idea of success and perseverance and rejection. We are only being shown these curated images of people, and the truth is, sometimes it's the most simple moments that we live that are the most remarkable of all. And I think that capturing an ordinary life where nothing really happens, spoiler alert, there's no real plot. So I think that that was an opportunity to show everybody that no matter what is happening in your life, it is absolutely 100% remarkable, because to be alive and to have these experiences, whatever they might be, that's a remarkability in and of itself. And for Etty as well, it was remarkable.
Love that. I'm going to ask you two quick questions. We're going to open it up to audience Q&A. The first one is there anything that you wish you knew about the writing process or being an author, about the publishing world itself, about any of this? You can answer that, or you can answer, is there any advice you would give to Talya 3 years ago or 10 years ago? Either one of those, or both.
Yeah, I think they're almost connected. I think if I went back in time and told Talya at age 20, oh my gosh, I think I graduated my program when I was 24, maybe just 25. If I was gonna tell her, hey girl, it's not happening until you're 40, I don't know how she would have taken that. It might have made the rejection easier to swallow. I think that anything that we do, whether it's writing or any other process in our lives, you know, whether we're raising families or we're working in medicine or whatever it might be, I think that, you know, it's a journey and there's so much opportunity for growth. And I think that this like transition from being absolutely invisible for many, many years writing, I used to get asked all the time, are you a professional writer? And I'd be like, well, what does that mean? And they'd say, oh, do you get paid for writing? Another spoiler alert, writers don't really get paid very much for their writing, even when they are getting paid. But I think that like this process of transitioning from being invisible to sitting here in a room where I am looking out at family and friends, sitting in a bookstore that like, oh my God, like book soup, oh my goodness. So I think that if I told old me, it's not gonna happen for a long time, but when it happens, pun intended, it's going to be remarkable.
That's amazing. I will tell you, I've had to believe in divine timing. That's not my own. Because I started a book manuscript 10 years ago when my son was born, and everybody said, Tabby, nap when he naps, and I didn't and I couldn't. And I actually am on the cusp, hopefully, of, I wanted to surprise you with it, that I'm on the cusp of hopefully signing a book deal.
That's very exciting. This is a whole audience.
Now you found out too this way, Jamie. Last question for you. Tell us what you're excited about for some future endeavors or projects, because obviously you can't have one book under your belt. We need more.
Yeah, so I am in the middle of a few different projects. I'm wrapping up another poetry manuscript for submission. I am working on a nonfiction project, a memoir that is, I know I spoke a lot about my dad tonight, but my mom's food. I grew up with exceptional cooking, very unusual for an observant Orthodox Jew, so it's a food memoir, stories told through my mother's recipes. And I am also finishing up another novel that hopefully will start to go on its round soon. So giddy up, here's another few hundred rejections coming my way.
Thank you, Talya. We want to open it up to Q&A. So who would like to start us off? Maybe you can also tell us your first name, but stand up for us if you will, please. Okay? Yes.
Hi. So I'm Daniel. I'm Talya's first nephew.
Aw.
If that makes any difference. So I love the book. It's phenomenal. And I know that like a big focus of it is Etty, but I found almost every character to be so unique and feel so real. And I was curious, two questions. One, other than Etty, who would you say, like, which side character is your favorite character? And secondly, where did you pull the inspiration from to craft each character to be so real and raw with their own unique identity, you know, on top of writing Etty, who's such a focal point? How do you kind of separate yourself so that it doesn't all seem the same? You know, some authors, their characters can kind of blend together, but yours are so separate, so.
First of all, thank you for complimenting your question. You are now my favorite nephew. So I think that it was really important to me to make my secondary characters not feel flat. That's not to say that there aren't any other minor characters in the book that are flat, but it felt really important to create character arcs for the minor characters as well. So I can't explain exactly how I pulled the inspiration for each one, but I think being attentive within the moment of a scene and saying, okay, this is Etty's perspective, but what is maybe Benji, her husband, what's going through his mind? And even if I didn't write it in the scene, knowing what he might be thinking or reacting was able to help me develop his character further. And the same thing for all of the other characters in Etty's life that are either related to her or on the periphery. And also revision, you know, you write down characters and they don't all come fully formed, but this book went through many drafts, and with each one, I think paying attention to the characters, secondary as well as the main protagonist, allowed me opportunity to make them as full as I was capable of at the time. Keep going.
I didn't like the shotgun.
No, yeah, maybe he's a bit of a flatter character and definitely has a satirical role in the book.
Who else? Let's get some questions. Not all at once, I'm flustered.
It's okay to have a quiet crowd.
Well, were any characters, close to someone in real life that you have to be a little careful?
So I would say no, because once you start writing fiction, these characters just go off on their own and present themselves to you. So I would say that they're really not based on anyone. I'm a very attentive person. I'm always watching. If you know me like personally and we've had conversation or you tell me a wild story, I might tell you that's gonna go in a book one day. So sometimes I'll pull inspiration from different experiences or different people that I meet that might even be on, you know, a random interaction that left an impact and just felt startling to me and important to, you know, weave in. But no, I would say these are all very much products of my imagination.
Oh my gosh. And they're so separate from each other when you look at Etty and Sarah as a daughter, for example. Thank you for making them so different.
Yeah.
It was everything, you know? Of course. Any final questions? Because we're gonna have, yes, and then after we're gonna do.
I just want to comment. I just actually, I'm Talya's cousin, Michael. And I just want you to tell you, I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you. And I know you have been working for years on all your writing. And I wish Renee was here, my wife, to literally just even experience what you just presented tonight. It is, I'm gonna read this, and I'm gonna have her read it, and I'll comment on it to you. But I just want you to know, the best is yet to come, and you've got a lot of future, honey.
This is what happens when you come to your hometown. Yes.
There's a lot of Yiddish in this book, and a lot of it isn't in the glossary. How did you decide what was going to go in the glossary and which had to go to Mr. Google to translate?
Right. So, I can't remember which writer had said this. I really wish I did. But I read once at some point, a writer who also used another secondary language, that if there was anything that they felt their reader was going to miss out by not translating it, then they would make sure they translated it. So if there was a moment in which I felt like this Yiddish phrase isn't necessary for someone to really be familiar with, to understand and grasp the scene, then I would let it slide. And it's funny too, because when I was writing it, I didn't feel like there was very much Yiddish in it.
Really?
And then a lot of people have been remarking on how much Yiddish is in it. And the crazy secret is, I don't speak Yiddish. But I think that, these characters, authentically, the reality is most Hasidic communities, they are speaking Yiddish fluently, and I really wanted to make sure that came across on the page and to remind my readers that even though we're reading it in English, they would be speaking it in Yiddish.
To tell you, as a Persian person, I felt like I was reading a foreign novel. Toby, did everyone say hi to Toby from Book Soup? Thank you for everything. Should we get our book signing? Is that okay?
Thank you, Tabby,
Yes,
for
of
taking your
course.
time. Thank you to Book Soup. If you've already purchased the book, consider purchasing it for a friend as a gift, or there are many other exceptional books we are surrounded by that you can purchase to support an indie bookstore. Always buy indie. They are the backbone. So thank you so much for having us.
Let's give it up for Tabby and for Talya again. Thank you guys so much. Thank you all so much for coming. Now we're going to proceed with the signings. So I have copies of the book available at the register right behind you guys. And then we're going to form a single file line right down the middle of the chairs to bring your book up to get signed by Talya. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.